I'm Francois from Production Music Live, today with Producer Notes, and we are back with a fun one here. One of my favorite artists, Rezident, David from Germany. And we have a fully arranged track here, only using Ableton stock effects and instruments, plus Serum, modeled after a track called Pure, using different chords, different melodies, PML sounds from the MELODIC House Pack linked in the description. And we have a fully arranged track lasting around 4 minutes with an intro. And then we are bringing in our synths. Bring in the guitar sound and the fields, and then you have this delayed drop here. Some interesting low toms here, we're taking a look at that in a minute, but you have this nice delayed drop here after one bar, which is always kind of cool and interesting. And we are doing it again after 32 bars. More cymbals coming in here, and then around 1:30 something we are entering the break. Dreamy melodic house vibes here, and then the basses come back in. And then there's this almost half a minute build-up part here, super dreamy. And then finally, we're getting into the main drop of the track where really the entire orchestra is playing. Very dreamy, the reverbs are open, the delay channels here are open as well. We have this kind of modeled H delay here and a long reverb with a decay time of 6.24 seconds here. And master looks like that, just so you've seen that as well. And then we are repeating the main drop. And then it sort of winds down into the outro, where a lot of these main elements that have already been turned down here in the automations are taken out. And we are just keeping the rare clap, the snare, 2 kicks, and they're even low cut. And so it comes naturally to its end. We have the drums group containing these elements, if I'm just soloing that quickly. Quickly turning off this return channel here because there's a very long delay. So very interesting play of these low toms there together with the kicks. We'll take a look at that in a second. Then this is the bass group. Heavily sidechained here. If the kick's not playing, that sounds a bit weird. We'll taking a look at that in a minute as well. And then we have this instruments group here. Leads, keys, pads, blocks, bit of guitar, and some Atmos. And equally sent into the reverb and into the long feedbacked delay here. And that basically never stops. And it's also serving as an Atmo element in the background, and we are also sort of moving the automation around here over time, sometimes a bit more loudly, like building that up in the build-up and in the break, and then bringing it back down lower when all these elements are playing here. So there's a bit of an automation on that return channel as well. Now, before we go through these elements here one by one, who's Rezident, David from Germany, has released on labels like Purified and Anjunadeep, has a wonderful sound and sound design, one of my favorites, I'd say. And he's maybe one of the few artists that might follow in the path of Ben Böhmer, and, you know, maybe the other one would be Faker. We'll have to see, but he likes to play with elements of randomness in his emotionally very engaging tracks. So great style. And we're sort of trying to reverse engineer what he's doing to learn the thinking behind the style, to then be able to apply his ideas and what we like about them to our own music. So let's get started taking a look at the kicks here in the drums group of the drop. So we have this main kick here, kick nature, deep kick, very characteristic, but not too much high end. High end will be covered by all these delayed and standing reverb, open decay time elements that are in the instruments group. And standard 4 to the floor pattern here. And then we have this other kick element. So that one serves as a kind of low tom, but you can see it has a quick transient here, and then that part is a bit shorter. So shorter tail. So in the fourth position of the first beat and these two mid positions of the last beat. And then we already have the snare sitting on top of that. So this has, you know, high cut here, or we are low passing it, cutting the highs, because we are covering these elements with other sounds. Also a rather dirty snare, but short and snappy sample. And then we are combining that with this a bit late clap that we are calling rare. And that one has a tail, which is kind of nice. And you can find all of these samples in the new Melodic House Sound Pack here. It's also part of the Everything bundle. It's called Beyond Live. It has code PML 359. And it contains Serum presets, a full sample pack with great sounding samples, and 6 Ableton project files, construction kits like this one here, where you can then see how you can turn those sounds into a track and, you know, reverse engineer what's going on, take elements out of these, like copy such a track into your own project file. And it works on Ableton Live 11 or higher. So there we already have an interesting setup. We are at 118 BPM here, so not too fast. And let's take a look at our toms, which are interesting here. So that's number one. That's also playing with our bass line here. So we are really trying to distribute what's going on onto different elements here and make sure we are not playing the stuff all at the same time. So there's our snare, there's our kick. Here are those three toms sitting between the kick and the next kick and the snare. And then we had these low kick elements here. And then we are putting these two a bit higher ones on top of it, which sounds a bit like a loose bass drum. So this combined with, and also has a long tail, so plays for a while with a proper release time. Okay, so let's play all these elements together. Just a cool setup already, and this kind of gives, like these toms and low kicks here give the impression of a functioning bass line, and this will later allow us to put this more sustained bass, the Reese one, on top of it, and it's still super powerful and groovy. Yeah, and taken off some low end on this tom sound here and some high end, and really focused on these resonant frequencies here, the ones that we want to have cut through. And we're adding in this closed hi-hat here. 16th notes, straightforward. Nicely moving sound, and also part of the sample pack part here. And then we have this crash loop, which gives energy to the drop part here. So that's always a nice element to put into your drop part and really signal, hey, something's happening here. And then we're quickly turning it off here, and it's being automated. And here we had some resonant frequency, which was carved out. Here we have transition impacts and another tom element that comes in early. Let's listen to that as well. So it all sounds pretty cool and natural, and we have this snare roll sitting here with, again, 16th notes. And being filtered up over time. So you listen to this in solo and you're thinking, hey, aren't we missing some high end? But you know, we have all these other elements that are being played on top later, so that will work. We still have this one clave or clave, whatever you want to call this. I keep forgetting how to pronounce it. Maybe you can comment below if you know it, but this one is playing this sound. And we're sending it around your ears with an auto pan. Just a nice drumming. And then later we're bringing in an offbeat hi-hat. And taking out some frequencies that were a bit disturbing in the setup here. Okay, so totally fun drums group here. We have another snare sound later. Gives a bit more energy. Okay, so moving over to the bass group, let's take a look at what is our sub bass doing here. So we're playing D for D major, then A for A major, E for E major, F sharp for F sharp minor, or G flat minor, however you want to call it. And then again, A major and C sharp minor. We'll taking a look at that a bit later, but these are the patterns. And we're playing every third 16th note. And then. So that's the sub. And what are we playing with Serum here? Let's take a look at the synth. We have a saw rounded to square wave here, and an octave higher we have a saw wave, and we also have a sine wave playing along. So let's solo this part. Very straightforward here, running through a filter, but nothing crazy going on. And then a bit of EQing, a bit of mid-side EQing here. And then later, sometimes in the arrangement, we can put in a low cut and automating this utility over time as well for the arrangement purposes. And later, we have this plug, which is serving a bit more like an 808 type sound. Has this pitchy beginning. Make sure you're on good speakers or on headphones. Where LFO1 is controlling the chorus pitch here of our saw rounded to square wave. If we take a look at the matrix, so we have a little bit of the pitch automated here with this LFO. It brings in the clickiness. Well, not the sidechain clickiness, but that at the beginning of the note. And then we are rolling off the low end here for proper sub separation. We don't really want to interfere too much with the saw, with the sub, or also with these, toms that we were playing below. And this one is especially useful at the beginning of our track here if we're playing it all together. Just a cool feeling with this 808 type sound setup here. And then below that, we are playing this one. Bit more gritty, this sound, but the same pattern, the same setup as the other two ones. And let's take a look at the Serum sounds here as well. We have the I Can Has Kick, -3 octaves, and then we have a sine wave sitting on top of that for the upper harmonics of the sound. And a part of that, nothing really automated here, nothing really going on. We're just using this envelope here to control the shape of the sound. And then we are also running everything through a low cut filter at around 430 Hertz. And let's combine these sounds together in the drop. It's nothing crazy if you think about it. It's also getting a bit of saturation here with the saturator on the bass group, but other than that, it's pretty clean in the setup. And then we have, and nothing spectacular, to be honest. And then we have this Reese bass sitting on top, but cutting out low frequencies and a lot of the high frequencies. And now we're giving it width. 8 voices, 16 voices, deep stuff. Again, putting off the sidechain for demonstration purposes quickly. That's exactly what we want this sound for. And this one has the mod wheel assigned to the filter cutoff. So we are bringing up the mod wheel over time here towards our drop. Yeah, and this sound is really here to occupy the higher frequencies and cut through the mix also at different positions. And that's why we have it sitting quite stereo, quite detuned here with all these voices. Let's play all the bass notes together, or the bass sounds together. Very nice. And on top of that, we have several instruments playing, and maybe we can start with these beautiful sine keys here. That's how they play in the beginning, and later in our draw part. Again, I'm going to put off our sidechain quickly. Did I forget to put the bass one on again? No, I put it on. Okay, so a beautiful chord progression here. We have D major 7. Followed by A major and by E major. So why is that A major? You have A, and then you are playing, you have 3 semitones in between where we have nothing, and then the next one is a C sharp, and then we have 2 semitones in between. So we have a major third between these 2 notes and a minor third between these 2 notes, and then we're playing the octave up here again. So that's a major chord. Has the typical characteristic sound of a major chord, and the same is true for this one. It's an E major chord, and here we have D, which is voiced up. If I'm bringing the F sharp down, you can see it's also a major chord, and then we have a 7th sitting on top. Typical 7th chord vibes, but this one is voiced up. So D major 7, A major, E major, and then we are going into F sharp here, F sharp minor, where we are taking A 2 octaves up. Actually, you can see it here. That would be our minor 3rd, and that's our 5th, and that's the octave sitting on top of F sharp again. But this one is brought up 2 octaves, giving it this super beautiful character here. Introducing nice tension, and let's actually play it from here where it's a bit more open. Yeah, and that's an A major followed by a C sharp minor chord. Yeah, this is our chord progression, and let's take a look at the sound of these beautiful sine keys here. We are playing a sine wave, and on top of that we have a saw wave with 5 voices, and we are also at times automating the sub oscillator on that sound here in the beginning, because we have this here. In the beginning we have, so the sub opens up a bit. Adds a bit more bass, and then we're going into this draw part here where other elements are taking over. Very nice. And we have, what else sitting on top? I think the next element would be our leads here in the draw part. So and they're not really always going perfectly together with the pattern of the sine keys, but you have a nice setup here. And it's often enough that these notes are meeting in position. So first one, second one, and then the fourth one, and then this one is meeting. And so it's not perfectly aligned because this one here is playing in between, that one is playing in between, but it's still good enough to work, especially if you have a kick supporting that. Also a pretty straightforward sound. Envelope 2 controlling the filter cutoff and the mod wheel as well. Sometimes you can bring that in easily, so that's the setup here. And it's getting supported by this square sound, playing the exact same melody. Basic MG, just a beautiful wavetable with a little bit of alpha noise sitting on top of that. And again, we're just controlling the filter frequency of this filter effect here. And you can see these are simple sounds, so we don't need too much processing here. It's pretty straightforward what has to happen. Let's move over and combine that with a bunch of frequency filling pad sounds. These are really in the background. And also coming in a bit slowly with slower attack times. Here, 400 milliseconds of attack time, 7 voices, 8 voices, and an octave lower than that one, and it's saw waves. And we're sending them through this MG Low Pass 18 filter. Nothing crazy else going on, a bit of reverb on that sound. It's really in the background, just like the other one here that fills out different frequencies. It's a bit more detuned, a bit more in the middle, and a bit more voices here. 7 voices. Oh, it's a bit wider or something. So these go together. They're providing a bit of bedding for all of these sounds here. And then we have the main guitar lead sound. It's that Ableton thing called clean basic guitar in the instruments. If you look for that, you'll find it in tension. So it's that clean basic guitar, then the heavy amp behind it, cleaning up low frequencies. Otherwise, we didn't need that. Bit more cleaned up, sending it through a reverb and through a chorus here. What does it sound like without him? With him? Just gives it this nice warm width to the sound, and utility, gain staging that thing a bit, then rolling off some higher frequency information that might be needed for our lead squares here, and another utility controlling gain staging, and then H delay type thing, sending a bit of feedback into that sound, and then this is over time our filter that we are using to bring it in and to bring it out. So the main elements that we have so far here are and you can see the guitar is always playing when we have these chord changes here. And it's a bit late with that one. But it also makes it feel more natural, and also guitar sound itself makes it feel more natural. And now we have a bunch of sounds here that you can basically sum up as drone type Atmo thing. If I'm soloing this one, this basically, because we are remodeling this with Ableton only and Serum, we don't have the exact synth sounds and whatnot that David used to put this one together. So we have to sort of layer it together, and we are doing that by doing this. I'm quickly showing the sound, and I'm just going to quickly skim through these. Beautiful sound. That one just works. So that is the first one. Then we have the second one doing this. That one is a bit pitchy in the beginning, also has that coarse pitch thing going on with an LFO here again. And then a saw rounded to square wave. Let's put these two together. So nice setup. And then also in the same bedding, we have it's almost kind of like what you have in Afro House, but really carved out here in those higher frequencies. And all of the three of them together. And now we have this pad saw. And this one is sitting on E. Being brought in over time. And then this one is filling out an octave higher. Not going too much into details, pretty much always the same story here. And then we have this one here as well, filling out. Our frequency range, kind of like if you have the Prophet or something, an external synth, this would be occupied by one sound already. And then we're just throwing in these vocal atmos below. Nicely fitting here, pitched up, so they fit into our scale. They are from the PML Vocalized Pack series, and another one down here as well, but this one is carved out in the EQ. For the lower frequencies, putting those together. Creating a bit of tension here together with these plugs that we were looking at before. They form the drone part of the track, basically. And not to forget, we have this H delay sitting on top of everything. And now you're wondering, that sounds a bit weird. Let's put it into context with everything. And that's just an interesting takeaway in music production. Sometimes you have to listen to the sum of the elements to really make a call or a judgment if something fits your track or it doesn't. And then we have this effects section here below where we have this downlifting noise. Just a noise being sent through this equalizer here, alpha noise in this case. Going down over time, and then we have this noise drop. Also low cut here, and again alpha noise, and sent through this filter. Bit of dimension expansion on that sound to make it a bit wider. And then an interesting sound we haven't covered yet that is interesting here in the break part is this little thing called rumble. Very cool sound. You can synthesize these things, that's so cool. You can use a noise and then run it through a filter, and then a bit of dimension expansion all the way up. That one widens it a bit. And we can do this in our break part, for example. Let's listen to the context. It's kind of like your impact. So yeah, that was a quick run through these drone type elements here. And now we can take a look at the arrangement and the summary of the track. Alright, so let's zoom out a bit and have a quick overview. The arrangement is more for a radio edit or Spotify version with this intro. And then the synths building up. definitely not a club edit. And then we have this first drop here that's sort of laid back, just introducing this sine key chord progression. And building these groovy vibes. Establishing the groove and the chord progression and what's going on here. And now we completely change the scene by putting up all these other instruments and hitting you with this tidal wave of feelings. And then after 1.5 minutes, we enter the break, wind down and let the keys play and the pads come in. And again, these plugs are going up here. You can see they're falling down quickly into the break and being built back in. And now we have this bit of rumble down here, and that's the moment when halfway into the break we are introducing our lead melody, and that one will characterize our second drop. It had nothing to do with the first drop here. That was just the chord progression of the sine keys and those plucky sounds. And now we're halfway through the break introducing our lead melody that sits on top of that and sort of completes the picture. And now bringing in already our kicks as well, but they're low passed here. So you can see this gets activated at build up. And so the lows are cut and we just have the upper parts. We bring in more bass to sort of have these big waves rolling in here and in anticipation of the drop that's coming up. And that's also being emphasized by these snare rolls here. And we also had a slight switch in our bass patterns. Before we were playing, starting with F sharp and then landing on D. And now this is kind of the clue here also in this build-up. We are doing it the opposite way. We are starting at D and then landing on F sharp. So that's always a trick, you know, flip your chord progression basically. That can be very powerful and interesting for your second part of the track, or for a bridge part, or an interlude part, or even a second drop. Okay, so everything is playing, and now we are just adding in one more offbeat hi-hat and an extra snare. Playing the pattern 2 more times and then winding it down and really removing a lot of the sub information, a lot of the melodic elements here, just keeping the guitar and a bunch of the drone and Atmo elements, and then the kick here with heavy cuts on the low end and on the high end. So that's how we wind down everything. Okay, and now if we summarize the key elements of this sound, we have this kick and low tom setup here in our drums, which is super important and lays down the foundation of a groove that can then be played over with Reese bass sounds. So whenever you have such a setup, you're now sort of allowing yourself to play a sustained bass line on top of that. And your groove will still sound very interesting. And now you have these snares and late clap sounds here on top, which is kind of cool. That one coming in a bit late. And also very nice for the groove is this Clave sound. And then this looped crash here is really helping build the energy. Okay, so now with this setup of the most important elements in our drums, we are able to play a Reese bass. And still everything grooves. And now we have these plucky bass sounds playing along. But they're so soft in their attacks that they probably would not be enough to really build up a proper groove. That's why we need the toms, and that's why we need the low kicks to really make sure that happens here. However, we do have this one bass sound here that sounds a bit almost like an 808. But this one is more used in the beginning of the track. To sort of have this powerful bass introduction in this subtle, soft intro. I'm telling you with this that later there's going to be some powerful drop happening, and I'm already sort of announcing that here in the beginning by playing this more plucky 808 type bass sound. And so on top of that, we have these two powerful lead elements. We are combining a saw and a square for power, for fatness. Because we would have a hard time having this one here cut through. And it's also being heavily sent into the delay chain here and getting a bit blurry. And on top of that, we have this more clear one, the clear square sitting. And it's also just one voice, so it's very clean and centered. And able to cut through. And then we have these beautiful sine keys here for the feels, for the vibes. Absolutely beautiful sound in my opinion. And then we have the main element here, this guitar sitting on top of all three of them. And this one now needs to be in the upper octave, and it needs to be a very clean and clear sound with a proper transient so it cuts through. And we're actually using this, well, fake guitar sound here for a bit of more natural feel. And then our two pad sounds here are almost just used as frequency fill up. So more subtle pad sounds compared to other tracks. And then basically everything else here is just drones and Atmo. We just needed a whole bunch of elements to sort of remodel the reference track, the original track here, with a bunch of elements because we're using Ableton only and Serum. And also we have pretty long reverb and delay times. Here decay of the reverbs is 6 seconds, and then everything is just really taking time to decay. Also these effects here. Yeah, very beautiful style. Really like the sound of this artist. So I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough session here. Feel free to check out the links in the description for this new Melodic House Sound Pack here. If you're interested in learning melodic house production from start to finish, there's also a course academy linked in there for melodic house, as well as Serum Feelings, melodic house presets, vocal sample packs, our drum series D Premium. And if you're interested in all of that, feel free to check out the Everything Bundle, the greatest deal in our store and a great way to support our channel and this work here as well. So feel free to take a look at that, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment below what you want to see next, and I hope to see you next time. And now we'll have a full playback through the entire track.